Good morning, Wabash. Speaking today at Pioneer Chapel will be Bob Grand with his talk titled Lessons in Gratitude from an Old Wabash Guy. As the former managing partner of Barnes & Thornburg from 2014 to 2022, Bob Grand led the firm's strategic development and execution of firm-wide internal and external goals. He now focuses his practices on government relations. Bob has 4 continuous decades of government relations practice where he represents public and private clients before state and federal agencies and Congress. Bob is a leader of character who cares deeply about what is important to his colleagues at all levels and the clients he represents. In the community, Bob served as administrative assistant to Indiana Lieutenant Governor Bob Orr and also served in that role for Orr when he became governor of Indiana. He was treasurer of Friends of Dick Lugar, served as the Bush-Cheney finance chairman for Indiana, and was member of the 2000 Bush-Cheney recount team in Palm Beach County, Florida. Notably, Bob also worked as a senior member of the finance group for the Trump-Pence campaign. Let's give a warm welcome to Bob.
You know, since we're in the chapel, if you'll indulge, I think we ought to have a brief prayer. Dear Lord, please bless us this gathering as we give thanks for Wabash College, its students, faculty, and staff. Please guide us on a path of gratitude, education, and service to others. We are thankful for your guidance and grace. Amen. You know, my first title of the speech was, Will Wabash Survive Artificial Intelligence? However, after I finished the draft, I retitled it, Lessons in Gratitude from an Old Wabash Man. So I may not be an expert on artificial intelligence, but I am an expert on getting old. You know, I thought as I've talked to a number of folks over the years, it might be helpful to reiterate a few things, and I'll throw in a few stories because, as some people have said, I'm kind of like Forrest Gump. I've been in some incredible situations and had a lot of fun through my life. But I trace a lot of it back to mentors that I had and obviously to this institution. So for that, I'm very thankful. You know, I break it down kind of in lessons and, you know, which, you know, a number of you are, you know, I mean, all of you are in school, so lessons is not an unfamiliar term. But my lesson 1 is really the typical experience, hard work. You know, and I say to people all the time, how many of you have had a job where you mowed lawns or had a paper route or did things like that? Because here's why. You know, my story is when I had my paper route, we had a guy, and I went to do the first collection, and the guy came in at the door, 3-piece suit, obviously I didn't know at the time, very distinguished lawyer. And he said, I got one favor I want to ask. And he walks me down his sidewalk, and behind the bush is a mailbox. Strange, right? Mailbox behind the bush. He goes, in the morning, get off your bike, get off in the rain or shine, put the paper in that mailbox. Okay? I did it, never knowing. Of course, I showed up, as many of you know, when you go to collect for your paper out around the holidays, people are pretty generous. The guy, his wife answers the door. Dan, the kid's here. I walk up. Guy says to me, hey, thanks very much, and hands me $20. In 1968, $20 is the equivalent of $100. My entire collection for the route was $21, okay? So did that make an impression on me on hard work? Yeah. Years later, I was invited to a party at that house and found out that mailbox, the paper dropped on his kitchen table. So what did I learn? I learned to listen, pay attention, work hard. I got a job because the coaches, I wanted to come to Wabash College. I didn't have any money. My father was a steel worker, and my mother didn't work. My dad then got a job later selling some insurance, but neither of them went to college. So they got me a job in the steel mills. Let me just tell you, that's an interesting experience. And as I said, at the end of my career, my short summer career in the steel mills, the supervisor asked me, you know what the real purpose of this job was this summer? I said, no. He goes, to make sure you went to college. And so with that, I tell you that getting the jobs, having things, and I say, why do I say that? Because in my roles over the years, I served on our management committee, I've served in leadership positions where we've done lots of hiring. over the course of time. These are the things that people look for. You know, as I look out, as when I was a young person, I heard all this stuff, and I listened to some of it, but not. But then when you talk to people who are actually doing the hiring, you actually talk to people what they're looking for. That's important. So I tell you, get some experience. You know, you say, well, it's hard to do, whatever. You know, get jobs at McDonald's, get somewhere, go work anywhere. And at the end of the day, I say that because good work experience will resonate. And when you're looking around and you're getting hired, I'm telling you, it's going to matter. My favorite topic for all young people, and it's been something obviously that I've spoken about for a long time, because I haven't been young for a long time, and that is, number one, show up. You know, people say all the time, what do you mean? Now, these are my two favorite words. Show up. Show up for class. Show up, you have a dedicated and talented faculty. Take advantage of them. Show up for events on campus. Meet people. Gain understanding of things and opportunity. Be present and accounted for. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Okay, I know it's another old guy lecturing you, but I'm telling you, at the end of the day, as you get out in the real world, these things matter. You can get ahead a lot of times by just showing up, because a lot of people don't show up. A lot of people get disinterested. A lot of people lose interest. So showing up is important. You know, I can tell you another great showing up story. When I was a sophomore, when I was a freshman, I ran and was elected to an at-large position. And the sophomore year, I decided to run. Now, the entire student senate was Phi Gamma Delta members, every one of them, every at-large, every, you know, whatever, and me, and one other guy. So when it came time to be president, I went and said, I'm going to run for president of the student body, knowing I have no chance at all, and whatever. What happened? Well, the guy that was supposed to file didn't file, so I got elected, okay? So there you are. Show up. Put your name in. I became a student body president. They went to the dean to appeal, and, you know, good lesson. You got to file. You got to be on time, and I did. So people laughed. So I was the guy become the sophomore student body president. It was a great experience. Learned a lot. Got to meet with folks. Same thing about experience. You know, I was a young law student. Again, my mom and I struggling to make the payments for law school. What happens? A guy's running for office, running for governor of the state of Indiana, has a campaign. And one of my friends who I knew said, you know what, if you show up at this campaign, they'll give you free pizza and beer. You stuff envelopes, whatever, you get free pizza and beer. Now, you know, Wabash Guy, right? Who's not going to do that, right? I've got to go home. So I show up, and what happens? I'm there. I'm showing up almost every night because, you know, hey, you know, groceries are expensive. Free pizza and beer is free pizza and beer. What happens? I was the first guy there, last guy to leave. One day they come to me and they said, hey, you're in law school, aren't you? Yeah, you can write, can't you? I go, yeah, well, next thing I know, I'm drafting up position statements. Next thing I'm sitting in the office with the lieutenant governor. Next thing I'm his administrative assistant. Next thing he's the governor of the state of Indiana. Why? Well, because I showed up, because I took an interest, because not only because it was free pizza and beer, but because I went and said, I'm going to show up and I'm going to participate. So if you want to move up and you want to show up and you want to be a part of things, that's the key. And people tell me all the time, what's the key to success? Everybody wants to know your key to success. You know, how many times you get asked that question over your career? And I tell people, you got to show up. The next thing is really kind of, you're in the mix of it now, so you probably understand it, but it's good repeating. You got to create a network of friends and contacts and keep track of them. Write them down. Well, I mean, enter them in your phone. Life is a long journey, okay? And along the way, you're going to encounter so many people, but you got to keep track of them. And why? Because every step of the way, there are going to be people that can influence you, can help you, if you ask. And they say, well, you know, that's kind of, you know, people say I'm self-appointed, I'm a self-made person, a self-made man, and I say that's baloney, okay? Upon cross-examination throughout my career, I find nobody that didn't get a break, nobody that didn't have somebody help them, nobody that they didn't reach out to. So when you think about it, and you think about Wabash as a special place, you know, one of the top networking colleges in the country, take advantage of it, okay? And don't use the excuse, well, I'm not going to bother that alum because I know they're busy, or I know they're important, or they're this or that. Because I'll tell you what my theory is. And I've never had to use this, by the way. But here's my theory. If you're bothering me, I'll tell you, okay? So don't assume that you're bothering people. Don't assume that you've got questions about your career that alumni are not available. And you've got great staff here, you've got people to take advantage of, but that's important. They asked me to speak a little bit about my network. Well, my network, as I said, started with Bob Orr, true, unbelievable guy. He was Yale undergraduate, 2 credits short of a Harvard MBA because he enrolled in World War II. I mean, this was a guy that, you know, driving him around the state of Indiana, you learned a lot. You had a great mentor, you had a guy that took a great interest in me. When I was in law school, he made me give him his schedule so that if I was in a meeting and it was running late, he'd dismiss me from the meeting. Because he said, you can't miss school. Because he wanted me to be a lawyer. He was invested in my career. So you get a chance to work for folks like that. He introduced me to a woman who was running for state treasurer. I'm a young lawyer. The state treasurer has a lot of legal business. He gives me $20, says, take this woman to lunch, comes back and says, you're going to run her campaign. I said, well, sir, you know, my son was just born. My wife's a little bit unhappy with my work schedule. I'm not around very often. And he said, I don't think you heard me. You're going to run her campaign. So think about it. So next day, the managing partner of the firm walks into my office, sitting there, and he says, Bob, yeah, I just got a call from the governor. He said, the strangest thing, he just sent us this big case, and he said he wants us to do this legal work for the state. And he said at the end of the conversation, would you do me a favor? Would you walk in and tell Bob Grand that I called? I said, okay. Go home, come home the next day. Managing partner walks in my office second day. How you doing, sir? I said, fine. He goes, you know, strange thing. Governor just called. Just give us another case. It's unbelievable. And at the end of the case, he said, did you talk to Bob Grand yesterday? I said, yes, sir, I did. I go, okay, fine. Go back to my office, dial his direct number. Said, sir, I got the message. I guess I'm managing Marjorie Laughlin's campaign. So how did that work out for me? She became the state treasurer, and I got a tremendous opportunity as a young lawyer. So again, showing up. As a result of that, many of you would read about one of the great statesmen in our country was a guy named Richard Lugar. Spoke on this campus a number of times. Stayed at the Beta House. He was a Beta. And we had a lot of interactions, but I got a chance to be his treasurer. So people said, well, why is that important? As my mother once said, when the TV ads ran at the bottom, it said, paid for and authorized by Bob Grant, treasurer. My mother said, man, this is going all over the state. I said, well, Mom, you know, it's not bad publicity for a young lawyer. So why do those things matter? And that networking made a big difference in my life. I met a lot of people. I was fortunate, you know, try to tell too many war stories, but one of my best war stories was that after the 2000 election, as many of you know, very close race, recounts were being filed. I get a call from Carl Rove saying, Carl had been an old friend of mine, saying, you got a one-way ticket to West Palm Beach. I said, what do you mean? He said, you're going down there. We need 2 more lawyers on the recount team. So I went to the airport. You can't do this anymore. Walked in, didn't have a ticket, walked up to the desk. They had a ticket. They handed it to me. It was one way. It was Thanksgiving week. So I go down there, and it was an incredible experience. Okay, if you can imagine. When the guy drops you off the first day, he says, hey, he looks at me because I'm the head of the group, 6 people. He says, do me a favor. I said, what's that? He goes, don't screw up because you might cost the guy the presidency of the United States. That's a lot of pressure. And by the way, the most amazing thing about that is, so we go in, they have an outside check-in. You have to show your driver's license, a big complex. Go back in, and they have an internal check-in. I'm in there for 4 hours. First I come out. CNN, ABC, NBC, you name it. They all had satellite trucks, 62 satellite trucks in the West Palm Beach County parking lot. Guys are yelling my name. I walk over, and the guy from CNN says, Mr. Graham, we got some questions for you. I said, whoa, wait. Man, how do you know my name? He said, hey, when you flashed your ID at the check, everybody had a Zoom camera on it, and we've run you all through the things. Everybody knows who you are now. So anyway, so that experience ended up pretty well in terms of getting a result. But it just tells you a little bit, again, why to get involved. And I'm not here to tell you do it all in politics. Don't get me wrong. I've got another part of this that's important. But I would tell you that for me, that was my networking. And then so other things came about. I had the great pleasure, I served as Mike Pence's lawyer during the vetting process when he was being chosen to be vice president. You know, the great line about that is that the lawyer who was doing it essentially told me that, you know, the file on Mike Pence was about this thick, Newt Gingrich was this, and Christie was this. So at the end of the day, you get into some of those opportunities. What did I go back to, right, in things that you've never done before? Nobody's been there were no recounts. You know, now there's law developed all around it. What do you go back to? You go back to this place. You go back to the education that you got, how to think critically, how to analyze, how to be confident, how to work hard. That's what you come back on. So you're all sitting out there, I'm telling you, it's going to come back for you on so many occasions that it'll be amazing. The other thing I thought I'd spend a little time on is just because talking about the politics, fine, I could go on and on, I've got a lot of war stories. You got to get engaged in your community when you get out of here, wherever you go. And by community, I mean everything, right? The churches, living units, your social clubs, you know, not-for-profits, whatever. Why? And I've done a lot of it. Because I tell you that the involvement brings about a sense of purpose, okay? You want to be something. What do we talk about coming out of here as an educated man? But you got to have purpose. You got to do something. You got to be responsible. And what's the best way to practice that trade? Get involved. Do things. You know, I started with a group called the Little Red Door. We've done now for 30 years a camp for kids that have cancer. So we raise enough money so kids who have cancer can go to a camp, take a sibling. The parents have to drop them off. By the way, they drop them off. Can you imagine you're a parent? Some of you may have this in your family. And you drop your kids off at a camp, and they have a list of all the things, whatever. And of course, I have an oncology doctor and an oncology nurse saying there, you know what, we got Bob's chart, they're fine. So they get a week. They get a week to do things that horseback riding, zip lines, everything like that they don't get to do. So why is that important? Well, it's important because not to get signed up for something, not to just be involved. You got to have passion about it. That's the thing. I have a lot of passion about it. 20-some years ago, with a group of folks, we helped form a homeless shelter. And back in those days, it wasn't as big of a deal because there weren't as many homeless people, particularly youth, but we did it. And proud to say that now they have a big facility. They unfortunately serve hundreds of people in central Indiana. But I say to people all the time, don't just do it to put it on your resume. Do it and have passion. Do it because you want to do it. And there's plenty of opportunities out there, but you got to do it. And the other lesson, which I think is obvious too, and since I'm getting paid from the advance committee, the Dean of Advancement, Michelle, I need to mention you got to give back, okay? You got to give back. Everybody sits around and says, well, you know, and I went to Wabash College and, you know, my parents paid full tuition. Your parents didn't pay full tuition, okay? It costs a heck of a lot more to run this college than it does just on what the tuition is, okay? A number of you are benefits like I was, beneficiaries of scholarships. And so where does that come from? It comes from all the people that were here before you that felt very good about their experience. But number two, they felt like they had to give something back. So whatever you're a part of, whatever you believe, I'm telling you that that's the most rewarding thing for me, is to come back to Wabash College and see the thriving Wabash College, to see the kinds of students that Wabash College is still continuing to recruit. And why is that possible? It's possible because we have one of the strongest endowments. We're able to do the things that we need to do to keep this college competitive. I'll get back to my original theme. You know, young men are facing tremendous challenges in a world that's very challenging. Artificial intelligence is going to influence your life in a big way. However, in my humble opinion, your Wabash College education, your Wabash College experiences are going to be the most, they'll give you the most leg up, or a leg up in dealing with all that. Take full advantage of this institution. Now, I couldn't close without at least referring to DePauw University. you know, if is there anybody here that's a Chicago Bears fan? Anybody a Chicago Bears fan? Oh, great, okay. So I grew up a Chicago Bears fan. So when you go to the Chicago Bears games, and right before the game starts usually, if you're in line or whatever, like 6 months, or last year I was there for the Miami Dolphins game, and out of the tunnel and out of the whole arena, or all people walking up, like your people were chanting here, they start chanting, Green Bay sucks, or Green Bay this, or Green Bay that, whatever. And I'm in line, and the Miami people look at me and they go, hey, are these people that stupid? They think they're playing Green Bay today? I go, no, you don't understand. They don't care about anything else. They just hate Green Bay, okay? That's all they care about. That's their whole mantra, every game, whatever. So I kind of have that same opinion. You know, I know we got a great game coming up, a really tough game, and it's a great tribute to our great football coach, Don Morello. It'll be a wonderful game, and maybe there's one other after it, I can't remember, but I'm focused on the DePaul game, because I really don't give a heck about any of these other games. And so I tell you, this is about DePaul. Here's the lesson that a really old guy can tell you, and hopefully you'll all have families at some point. So this is how you recruit your sons. Both my sons went to Wabash, but here's how you recruit your son to Wabash. He's 6 years old. You take him to the Monon Bell game in Greencastle. I don't go back to Greencastle, but in Greencastle. You park on the far north end. You walk him by the cemetery, and you say, you know, this is DePaul. It's a scary place. You walk into the gate, and you notice, and you say, you know, normally tickets are $5. But these son of a guns raised it to 10. You know, that's what they do. That's what they do, and your son takes it all in. Then he wants a popcorn and a soft drink, so you take him to the concession stand, and you make the same comment. Well, a box of popcorn is $5? You know, at Wabash, it's $1. You know, why are they doing this? By the way, you had to wait in line forever to get in, because they only have 2 ticket takers for 4,000 people, but... So then he has his little football, and he's out throwing his football, and people come up to him and say, you can't throw that football over here. So he goes under the bleachers, and they tell him to get out from under the bleachers. You can't throw that football under there. So he comes there for the rest of the game, beautiful sunny day, whatever. I put him back in the car with my friend. I drive him home, and he walks in the kitchen, and my wife says, Ryan, did you have a good day? And he looks at her and he says, Mom, I never want to go back to that place, okay? So there you have it. So then, when you live that story, now you're the younger brother, and you're a pretty good football player, and you're getting recruited by a number of places in the conference. But his older brother says, you know, you're not going to DePaul. So when the letter comes from DePaul, he deposits it in the garbage can. But I did tell him, I said he had never been to DePaul. And he always kind of said, I like to be at DePaul. I said, the day you'll be at DePaul is when you get off the bus in your football helmet. And how true did it come? His sophomore year, the long snapper got hurt. He loaded up in the bus. I was in a meeting in New York. I flew back from New York, got here in time to go to the JV game where I have a picture of my son walking off the bus for the first time he stepped on the DePaul campus. So I just tell you these things, not because I want to take every chance I can to make fun of DePaul, but it's a true story. That's exactly what happened. I'm just trying to give you tips so that if you're going to recruit your kids, that will work. I'll close with this. My most sincere hope is that in 50 years, roughly 50 years, you'll each have the honor to address a chapel and give thanks to this institution for the impact on your life. God bless you all.
A few final announcements. Please attend Bob's talk about the intersection of law and politics at noon in Baxter 202. This weekend, the swim and dive team will be competing at Kalamazoo College. On Saturday, wrestling will compete in the Adrian Invitational. Also on Saturday, soccer will be at Oberlin at 1 p.m. And lastly, football will host their last home game of the regular season as Denison comes to town. Now will you all please rise and join me in singing Old Wabash. Da 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 da.